At Five Star Bank, community is at the heart of what we do. Every day we strive to have thoughtful solutions for our customers and help our communities prosper. Honest dialogue about the issues affecting the region is vitally important to that prosperity. We are proud to be part of the conversation and hope you'll join in.
In 2009, Levi Bankert received a phone call that changed the life of this 27-year-old Sacramento real estate developer. A young girl named Balis, a child about to be murdered by Ethiopian elders from her remote village, was rescued by visiting photographers. According to tribal superstition, allowing children declared unclean to live could cause drought, hunger, and death. These children would be left in the jungle to starve, or to have dirt stuffed into their mouth, which would cause suffocation, while older children were bound and thrown into the river to drown. Bankert and his wife Jessie relocated to Ethiopia to rescue children like Balis and help welcoming families adopt them. Today, the Bankerts build orphanages in Ethiopia to provide loving homes to children left parentless by superstition, disease, and poverty. Candy Chand is the co-author of Levi Bankert's No Greater Love, one man's radical journey through the heart of Ethiopia. Candy joins us along with Stephanie Wahlberg, Balis' mother, and Preston Naramore, an orphanage volunteer. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Candy, I want to know, how did you get involved in this story?
Originally, I read a short piece in a local paper, Levi is from Sacramento, about Levi leaving his development business. It was going under during the real estate decline in '09, and he was taking his entire family and relocating indefinitely to Ethiopia to rescue children.
Wow.
And I sent him a brief email congratulating him on his honorable work. We stayed in touch for about a year, and at some point he realized I was an author, and we decided to write this book together.
And what was it about this story, as a person who is a writer, what was it particularly about this story that inspired you where it is that you wanted to make this a project?
People ask me a lot to help them write a book, and with most people, a memoir is only interesting to their mother and their friends. Levi's story was so amazing. Most people in the world were not aware of Mingi, which is the practice of executing these children. He had such a personal story, leaving so much behind to go rescue children that he didn't even know. And I just knew that it was a story that could change the world, that it would inspire others to do good, and that people needed to know about.
Now, what is Mingi?
Mingi is the name of what the tribes in the South Omo believe their children can be born with. In some cases, a couple are not married. Their children is declared during pregnancy to be Mingi. It loosely translates as unclean. It means they're cursed. Sometimes their top teeth come in before their bottom. And then are a twin.
And that's a big deal.
That's a big deal. So there are different reasons. Sometimes the couple is married, but they did not announce at an elaborate ceremony to the elders that they were trying to conceive. So once a child is declared Mingi, they are executed, many of them at birth, and some when they're older. Sometimes their second teeth are coming in, and those children are aware of what's about to happen.
Now, Preston, you've worked in these orphanages and been back to Ethiopia. What is the belief system that drives these tribes members to engage in this practice? And one would think that in this day and age that such practices would be a thing of the past.
That's true, but these villages or tribes are really in the middle of nowhere, in the heart of Africa. And these tribes have been there for a long time. There's one in particular, they've been in this area by the Omo River for about 100 years. So there's lots of superstitions that have kind of crept into their culture, and they really want to preserve their culture. So when these things come in, they don't like to change that much. So if someone from the outside comes in and wants to say, hey, you should stop doing this, they don't want to listen to it. So somewhere along the way, they believe that a curse came upon their land when these things happen with these children. So with the one that Candy described of when their upper teeth would come in before their bottom teeth, they kind of held the children there until there was a drought or they had bad crops, and they said, okay, this child needs to be the sacrifice to help alleviate this curse from the land. And
Now you actually have you negotiated with these tribesmen before and to rescue these children?
Yeah, I was a part of some of the rescues.
Yeah.
We worked with the Ethiopian staff there, and one of them was a tribal leader's son. So he was very involved with the negotiations. And
Well, give us a sense of that type of what happens, how these children are identified, how the team goes in and rescues them. How does that happen?
Well, so some of the babies are left stranded in the bush when it's deemed a baby Mingi, and that's one where a father and mother maybe didn't announce that they wanted to try and have a child. So those children are killed very early on. The older ones, there's something called the Mingi Gate, that when you go to one of these villages, it's this wooden framed kind of archway that you walk through, and there's different passages. One passage is for a wedding, so a husband and bride will pass through it before they go through the ceremony. And the Mingi Gate is just to the side of that, and they pass the child through this doorway as part of the ceremony before they kill the child, either by throwing them into the river or leaving them out in the wilderness.
It just seems so cruel and heartless. And this is just sort of, you make it sound like this administrative procedure that is thought of without any emotion attached to it.
Yeah, it's difficult. I think a lot of the people in the tribe do not like it. And obviously the parents don't want to harm their children. But there's so much superstition and kind of just the power that the eldership has over the village, that they keep these people in a lot of fear and saying, if this does not happen, then you're harming all of these people, not just your child. So it's kind of for the sake of the community that they do this. And there's disagreements. The elders want to keep the tradition and that going on and continuing it, but the families and the parents try to fight against it, but they just can't really. So it's a very sad thing and an emotional thing.
It sounds like it. Candy, I want to come back to you. As the co-author of this book, and having worked with Levi on exploring this issue, the question that immediately dawns on one that reads about this is, how big and pervasive is this problem? Because it would seem like Ethiopia has a government, it has a military, it has educational centers, and so it just sounds really out of place.
Exactly.
Is this a small issue? Is this a large issue?
It's been a large issue for a long time, but because it happened in such remote areas of southern Ethiopia, when Levi first went there, pretty much to the west it was not known. There's been a small amount written about it in National Geographic and a few things since then. But the government, when he would go to the government, some people would say, gee, we thought this stopped generations ago, and others were aware of it. But the government has stepped it up. Since Levi's organization was there, they are patrolling the area. The Ethiopian government is doing an excellent job saying, look, we're going to throw people in jail, we're going to take you to court, you can't do this. You don't have to keep these children if you're afraid. Obviously, you're not going to convince people their belief is wrong, but you're going to turn these children over to caretakers. There have been several orphanages that have sprung up in the South Omo to accommodate this need since then.
Right. Stephanie, I'm just still trying to wrap my arms around this. And I mean, as the mother of a child that was identified in this way, it just boggles the mind to imagine taking a child and pronouncing a death sentence on them.
It is. Well, I think what's interesting, because you were talking to Preston about, and he was sharing about the eldership, and what I find in Balis' story that's fascinating is that her dad was part of the eldership. But what they did, because her top teeth came in first, and so that's why she was deemed Mingi. But what they did is they took her and they gave her to an uncle in another village to hide her. So she was actually hidden for 5 months. And then what happened, though, is that, and I think mostly probably because he was an elder, and since obviously elders are being the example here, and so they said, you need to bring her back. So.
And incidentally, thank you so much. We're going to get a chance to meet Bali a little bit later on in the show. But before we do that, Candy, you know, there is a notion that we're being cultural imperialists, that in fact, that this is a sovereign nation, Ethiopia. As Preston talks about, you know, customs and traditions, of these tribes that exist there, and that we're coming in and imposing our own Western value system and morality on them by interrupting what we may think is completely outrageous, but is part and parcel of a tradition that may have existed hundreds or maybe thousands of years. How do you and Levi and the other folks who have been involved in this issue respond to that?
That's a good question. And I think for years, anthropologists and many people dealing with social justice really battled with that kind of issue. Do you just report and watch? But I think worldwide, most people understand that with humanitarian issues that if you're, if a child is being murdered, if there's rape involved, certain things we do get involved. And there is still a great respect for that culture. I know Levi and his group feel that the parents love these children. They're afraid. And so their decision was to work with the elders and say, if the children can't remain on the land because the land is cursed, we're not going to argue with you about that. But if we remove the children from the land, will the curse go? And they agreed. And so their hope was to show that these children are alive, they're healthy, they can be citizens of Ethiopia, they can be successful, to show by example that they're not cursed, but they're actually a blessing. So I think it's a way of respecting the culture and protecting the children.
You know, cynics might say,
Yeah.
who are joining us, that Levi was running away from a failed business, and that there wasn't any altruism in that. It's just running away from a problem. What would he say if he was here?
He would say that that's partially true. Actually,
Okay.
in the book, he does speak about this. And what I loved about writing this book with Levi, his memoir, and he did an incredible job writing, is he's very honest. And he's a broken hero. He's not someone that comes across on his, high horse. He says originally he felt called to go, but once he got there and saw the children, he realized part of it was he was running away from a failed business, and he was thinking, oh, even Ethiopia in the middle of nowhere sounds like a great relief. However, once he got there, he discovered this was a calling, and it was part of his destiny. But there was a certain amount of running away,
I'm
for sure.
intrigued by this term, broken hero. Give me a definition on that.
He's just not someone you'd put up on a pedestal and say he's perfect and look what he's done. He had a lot of failures. He went in, he made a lot of mistakes. He was doing his best. He was partially running away from everything going wrong, but he also ran to something good. So he's definitely an imperfect hero. He's someone I think readers can relate to and say, I can make a difference because I'm not perfect.
Now, he's one half of a team.
Yes.
I don't want to leave out his wife,
Absolutely.
Jessie. And, it's a rare wife that will say, yeah, honey, we'll pack up everything today and move to Ethiopia and with our children as well. Tell us about her.
Jessie's incredible, and they have 4 children now. One is an adopted Mingi child, but they had 3 when they left this country, and it was mostly due to her encouragement. Levi was originally asked just to go for 2 weeks, and he was hesitating because his business was falling apart. He had bankers calling him. He didn't think it was the appropriate time to go, and it was Jessie who said, you take the last $2,000 we have and you go. And when he came back and he said, how do I leave these kids? The photographers are leaving back for Germany. Who's going to take care of these kids? She was the one that said, it's us.
Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing.
Wow, wow. So going back to all of those kids, do any of you have a sense as to how many children die each year who aren't rescued?
I'd heard a stat. Do you have an official stat for that?
It
handy, or?
varies because so much of it is underground. I've heard anywhere from a couple hundred to 1,000. There are 3 major tribes that have practiced this. It has scaled back substantially due to the government intervention in the last year or so.
Right. Now, one of the interesting things about this story is that early on, there was, I believe, a lot of adoptions. And so, for instance, in your family's case, you were able to adopt Bale.
Right.
Right? But the adoption stopped. And we see these celebrities, there are a number of celebrities who have adopted children from Africa, and Ethiopia is one place where there's been a lot of adoptions taking place. What happened?
The adoption of the Mingi children ceased, partially because the tribes were becoming very upset by having to travel into Addis Ababa, which is, I think, a 4-day trip.
Yes.
For many of them, they had never even seen a Caucasian person. It was overwhelming. They were meeting with diplomats from the U.S. and adoption agencies and diplomats from Ethiopia, and it was overwhelming to them. I'm told it was for them like traveling to Mars. And so it got to the point where more of the Mingi executions were going underground. I hate to use this expression, but it almost became easier to kill the children than to go through this adoption process. So Levi's organization promised after the first 4, which was Bali was the first, Levi has a daughter, and there were 2 others, that there would be no more adoptions, but that they would raise the children in the country.
Wow. And in terms of, and the difficulty is, I just want to make sure that I understand. And it was because of the distance traveled that it became a pain to the tribesmen?
Not just the distance, but having to deal with so many authorities and answer so many questions through interpreters. And this was just, they just wanted to be in their culture, and I think left alone. I think it became overwhelming. So to protect the children, they were rescued out, but they're to remain in Ethiopia.
Okay, but this hasn't affected the general adoption of other Ethiopian children
No, not at all. Just the tribal.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so in place of the adoptions, there's been another model that has taken place, and Preston, orphanages now, which is something we only see rarely in this country, there's a model that's being established. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's a lot more orphanages in that area in southern Ethiopia. But there's a new model that's starting up with, I forget the exact term, but where there's a single mother that's put into a home, and then they bring 6 to 8 children into the home that are orphans, so they can be raised in a family environment instead of being put into a larger place where maybe they're not given a lot of attention. They want to put them in this family environment where they can have a mother there and others that can be involved. So it's a very, more of an intimate atmosphere where the child can really just have attention and have care, which they do receive in orphanages, but I think there's something to be said when you're with 5 or 6 other children instead of 20 children.
Now, some of the initial work that was done on this issue, what came out of the Rock Church of Roseville, that's a local church, and I'm curious, for this new model that you're talking about, how's it funded?
Purely through donations, really. There's hopes to see it be sustainably done with different things in Ethiopia, but really from people being involved, because really when we're on the other side of the world, if you're here in California or wherever you may be, it's difficult to grasp what's happening in Africa, in China, or some other continent. So really, a lot of times what we can do is donate our funds.
Sure.
We can do time somewhat while we're here, but these things, it costs money to feed the children and to clothe them and to put them in a safe place to stay. So,
right.
Yeah.
Stephanie, where are the men at? In the background of what's going on over there, these models and the orphanages, it seems like that there's a lot of engagement by the women in terms of taking care of these children. Where are the men in Ethiopia? Are they involved in this, in the raising of these children at all, that go into either this new format or the old one?
Well, that is interesting, because I know when you were there, there was, 3 nannies that were in that orphanage? So, I mean, obviously the nannies are the ones that are there, and then of course people that come in to volunteer, like Preston and someone else had done, you know, so there are people that come in to do that. But as far as the men, I don't know that they have much hands-on with any of the orphanages on a regular basis. Preston might know the answer to.
Do you have an
particular
answer?
one, there was, we had a guard that wasn't exactly a guard. He did a lot of kind of on-site maintenance and things, and he was very helpful. Him and his wife stayed right next to the orphanage. But as a whole, it's mostly women involved with the
Is that because of, you know, there's been an AIDS crisis that's ravaged parts of Africa. There's also been war. Do you have any sense of of where that absence of men comes from?
You know, there are men administratively. Levi obviously is male, and Yavi was someone from Ethiopia who is a director. But as far as hands-on mother figure, I think that was, you know, moms are moms, and that's the way it's rolling. But to give them that family environment. But there's certainly men that are interacting with the children as well.
Stephanie, I want to go back to Bala, your daughter, and you touched on her story a bit earlier, but can you tell us of her journey and how she came to you?
Yes. So as I was saying earlier, you know, she'd been hidden for 5 months, and then they wanted her to come back to the village so that they could go and tie her up and throw her in the river there. And that's when the photographers, they came through within probably a day or two of that happening and rescued her, and then took her into...
So the decision had been made. They were going to
Yes.
tie up
Yes.
this 3-year-old girl at the time, right?
No, she would have been probably closer to 12 to 18 months because her
Oh,
two top
okay.
teeth had come in. But yeah,
An 18-month toddler, and they were going to tie her up
yes,
and just toss her in the river.
yes. So, and this, but her parents truly did not want that to happen, and I believe that's why they protected her and they kept her hidden. And but after much pressure from their tribe, there really was no other alternative. So really, it was a miracle that someone came through at that particular time and rescued her.
And we're going to have the opportunity in a few moments to meet your daughter, Bale. But before we do, Candy, I want to ask you, tell us about Levi and Jessie Bankert's life today.
Thank you. Today, both of the Bankerts, well, and their children, their 4 children live in Addis Ababa, which is the capital. They're no longer working directly with the Mingi children. Several orphanages are doing that job. But they opened a group, as Preston mentioned, of satellite homes where they rent homes in the city. I believe they have 6 or 7 now, with 6 or 8 kids each and a mom. And these are children taken out of the state orphanages. The government is working with Levi. So the orphanages are so overcrowded. They may have 2 or 3 children to a bed. So he's taking the children in. They have a mother, they have food, they have private education, and volunteers around the world or contributors are funding that, and it's called Bring Love In.
Bring Love In. And has it been difficult to get volunteer support both from bodies as well as in terms of funds?
I think funds is always an ongoing concern because as you bring more and more children in, you fund a house, which evidently is around $650 a month. It's really inexpensive to raise these children in country. But as they expand and bring in more children, there's always a need for more funds. And people around the world have been very generous, but it's an ongoing need to get the story out there.
And for those folks who want to get involved, what advice do you have for them in terms of where they should go?
If they want more information, if they're considering contributing, they can go to www.bringlovein.com and look at the blog, look at the website, there are photos, and they can get more information. They can shoot Levi an email, his contact is there, and so is Jessie's, and follow from there.
Okay. In going and writing this book, involving yourself in this story, what's this personally meant for you?
Boy, I'm not a crier, but that, you know, as a writer, a story doesn't get better than this. And there have been days I've asked myself, why me? Why was I given the opportunity to share this story? And I think any writer would give their right arm to tell this story. So to be able to raise awareness and make a difference and to use my gift as a writer to help Levi write his story has been a phenomenal opportunity.
Wow, that is fantastic. And it looks like we have another visitor. Hello, Bale. How are you doing today?
Good.
I really like the barrettes in your hair. That's very pretty. Now, how old are you? 5. Okay. All right. You're better at numbers than I am. I've probably done something like that. Okay. And today, Bale is part of a large and growing family.
Yes.
Stephanie, tell us a little bit about Bale's home.
Well, we actually moved to the country so that we could have more land. So they have trampolines and zip lines and chickens and rabbits and cats and a rock climbing wall and all kinds of fun things, because I really believe that kids need to have activities and fun things to do. So, so we do a lot of that at our house, and a lot of fun, a lot of activities, because we do have lots of kids.
Right.
So.
Bali, and what's your favorite thing to do?
Play.
Play? Okay. And you like the cats? Okay. All right.
Rabbits too.
Rabbits too. Rabbits too. Rabbits are always fun, huh? Can you give me a high five? All right. All right. Well, congratulations on your family. And you have an addition coming in.
Yes, yes.
So,
In just a couple months, another baby, yes.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for this story of hope and of just pure love across the seas. And congratulate all of you on your work and on your commitment and on opening your hearts. It was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Well, that's our show. Thanks to our guests and thanks to you for watching. For Studio Sacramento, I'm Scott Syfax. See you next time right here on KVIE.
At Five Star Bank, community is at the heart of what we do. Every day we strive to have thoughtful solutions for our customers and help our communities prosper. Honest dialogue about the issues affecting the region is vitally important to that prosperity. We are proud to be part of the conversation and hope you'll join in.
All episodes of Studio Sacramento, along with other KVIE programs, are available to watch online at kvie.org/video.